Hello, everyone. I am here today to review the new album that was just released by Norwegian artist AURORA, titled A Different Kind of Human, Step 2. This is, as it says, the second part of an unnumbered set of albums that we don't know when will end. She has said there will be many steps to this current project that she is working on. They all are their own distinct records and albums, but they all sort of also kind of tie in thematically together to a narrative. They're all using a similar photo shoot as their album covers. Infections of a Different Kind, Step 1 was released last fall, and I reviewed it on this channel, and I had glowing things to say about that record. It was only 8 songs. That, in my opinion, makes it longer than an EP. I believe an EP is 7 songs or less, but technically it was classified as an EP because it was under a certain number. But what it lacked in like length of songs, it made up for in quality. And Infections had just this magical aura and power to it that was so emotional and so raw and so mystical. And I couldn't stop listening to it. And I still, to this day, I'm just like in awe of that record and that body of work. So it's understandable and an understatement that I was extremely excited and hyped to get new music from Aurora, like only like 8 months after that album came out, not even a full year. She released the lead single off of A Different Kind of Human, Animal, in January. And I was like, oh my God, we're starting the next era already. She had said back when Infections came out that the next step might come in a year or two. She was very vague about it, but I assume she meant at least a year, probably longer. And here we are, less than a year away from Infections, and we're already getting step 2, which has led me to think, well, I wonder if step 3 is actually coming in less than a year. Is she going to try and stagger these out in equal lengths, or is step 3 going to be 3 years away? Because it took 3 years for her to go from All My Demons Greeting Me as a Friend, which I have also reviewed on this channel and I loved, to Infections. That was a bit of a gap. So I'm just curious to see where her progression goes and what step 3 might sound like. Personally, I think if she's going with these step things, I think a trilogy is great, a great idea. I think maybe just 3 is like a nice number to be at. So I'm expecting at least one more step, but whether we get more steps beyond a third, I'm not sure. So, A Different Kind of Human, like I said, we got Animal, the first single, which was a much more poppy offering, which, I expected because, Queendom was also a very pop song, to lead the record, to kind of give that little bit of a radio play and somewhat a mainstream edge and appeal, which was totally cool with me. I love that song. I reviewed it on this channel. We then got The Seed in April, which was a song that fans were literally dying for as it had been performed live over the years. And the environmental message, the sheer power and magnetism of this track, and the way it's a little bit more edgier than a lot of stuff she's created in the past in terms of really getting this direct message across, that was just something so welcoming, so awesome to see. I was in love with that song from the get-go, along with its music video showing, the protests against climate change and, these policies that just aren't really getting off the ground in terms of really trying to save this planet from its own doom coming forward. It's the future is now. Like, the planet is in need of people to do something about it. We can't just no longer speculate about the future 50 years from now. It's like the next 10 years are extremely important. And, Aurora being the younger generation, we are the most invested in this because we really want the future to look positive. We don't want an Armageddon scenario to come in our lifetimes, or for our children's lifetimes. Then we had The River, which came out more recently. And again, I had nothing wrong with any of these singles. These singles were all very pop, The Seed being possibly the least pop, but still all of them were very radio friendly. But at the same time, they felt so uniquely Aurora. They felt perfectly crafted to portray a message that was pretty clear upon first listen, but at the same time had a lot you could unpack and unravel, and amazing music videos. The River being about being not afraid to let your walls down and actually let the rivers flow, the crying, like out. It can be very cathartic. So the 3 singles, and with Infections already behind us, I had no doubt in my mind that we were in for something really, really exciting. Last week, she released the title track, A Different Kind of Human, and my anticipation just continued to mount. And I will talk about that song as I go through the track by track. But I will say this in preface of this video, especially upon first listen of this full-length album, which is 11 songs, I have to be completely honest. And by the way, I just want to point out I am wearing my Aurora shirt. I will always try and wear that because I have seen her live, and I always want to wear this shirt when I review her music, by the way. I have to be honest, and I have to admit when things aren't quite jiving with me. And on first listen, with the new songs we got, not the singles, but the new stuff, I was a bit let down. And actually, unfortunately, I think saying a bit let down might be a bit of an understatement, just because of the high standards that I hold Aurora to now. And I talked about this in my Yona Lee review because it was a bit of a similar issue I had with her new album. It's not really their fault. It's my own kind of preconceptions of what I think an album will sound like based on their previous work. And of course, I need to understand that they're not going to just copy and paste the similar sounding kind of songs in a new record. I mean, some artists do that, but that's not showing any sort of growth or evolution, and no one really wants that at the end of the day. So I had to, and I didn't really do this properly, I had to strip my preconceptions about what this album might sound like away and realize that this album wasn't necessarily going to sound exactly like Infections was. And I had to be a little bit more open to something new and more experimental. And unfortunately, maybe it was because it was such a quick turnaround between these two projects, I just didn't have the time to fully prepare myself for that. The new songs that I've heard from this record are just not really doing the same amount for me as almost any previous Aurora track has. Aurora is an artist that, I consider myself to be a stan. And I mean that by saying basically when an album's for sale on, a streaming service or on iTunes, I will buy the music before even sampling it because I just know that it's Aurora. It has to be good. And she deserves my coin, because I really, beyond just the sounds and the sonics, I really believe in her message. I really just want to support her monetarily with whatever she does. It's not even so much about my own personal taste anymore. Like, I know that I'm in love with her music, and trust me, I'm not regretting that I bought this new album without even sampling the songs. But I mean, I have to admit that, had I actually listened to some of the samples, I might have been a little bit more hesitant to hit the buy all button. And I don't buy music very often anymore, by the way. I tend to only do that for artists that I really believe in who are maybe like a little bit less mainstream, because I don't necessarily believe that streaming necessarily gives artists the right amount of, I mean, it's definitely changing and getting better, but the right amount of financial compensation for my liking. I feel more comfortable actually supporting them by like buying something. A stream feels like I'm not really buying anything from them. Call me old fashioned, but I'm not so hip with streaming. I mean, I do it for a lot of mainstream artists. I don't really care, they've got their coin. But for non-mainstream artists who I really believe in, who are very, criminally underlooked by the mainstream, and Aurora is the definition of that. I mean, she is so underrated by the mainstream. It's really criminal, especially now. I feel like when All My Demons came out, she was really getting some traction. Katy Perry tweeted about her. She was getting the Vivo lift. And she was featured on the main iTunes homepage when her album came out and everything. Like, people were really talking about her. But then I feel like she sort of drifted back into being only kind of like a fan favorite, Like, these new albums never even made it onto the iTunes homepage. And like, I had to like really search for them. They didn't show up in terms of the 50 new releases that came out these weeks. Like, I'm like, she's much more popular than a lot of these other artists, but whatever. So she's really flown back under the radar, which is actually really unfortunate. So all this being said, A Different Kind of Human did not affect me the same way that Infections did. I didn't feel infected in the same way. But listen to the title. It's A Different Kind of Human. I should have listened closer. It's a different kind of record. I mean, the title, it's in the title. And perhaps the singles were a little misleading. Perhaps. But at the same time, I would say that this is definitely a poppier record for sure. I think this record is much more exuberant and energetic, much more broad in terms of scope. It's not so personal. It's not so much about something Aurora might be like personally relating to. But in my opinion, I find it hard. I feel like all of Aurora's music falls into a category of being somewhat detached from her, but also pulling on emotions that we all as humans can relate to. It's at the same time broad and introspective at the same time. And I see that in all of her music. So thematically, I actually don't really see that big of a difference, though someone did write down how they felt as though, this album was much more about the real world and dealing with and coping with the real world, whereas Infections of a Different Kind was about imagining this queendom, imagining this, idealized society. But I don't, again, like I said, there are songs that contradict that on Infections as well. So, I mean, honestly, the two records thematically go together, I would say, pretty well. And I actually put them into a playlist together, and I'll possibly write down in the comments or something, or I'll just put it up on the screen. It's actually 20 songs. It would be 19 if you combine the two albums, but I believe the Queendom Harp version is a great closer. It's Queendom, but on the harp. It's a beautiful song if you haven't heard it. That was released last summer. And I even ordered these songs. I mixed them all up to create what I think is the best order for those songs, though some may disagree. They just have a nice flow, and it's really fun to listen to. I will say this about A Different Kind of Human: the album does not feel quite as cohesive as Infections did. I think that's one of the biggest takeaways. And honestly, one of my biggest complaints about the record is the actual track listing itself. And as I go through it, I'll talk more about it. But some of the orderings don't really make sense to me. And I really think that if they just switched a few songs in the track listing, it might have felt a little bit more cohesive. But the album kind of jumps around a bit. So obviously, we open up with The River. I think it's an amazing opener. I wouldn't change anything about that. I've already given my thoughts on this song. An amazing electro pop track, one of the most mainstream friendly ones on the record, but again, those isolated, airy vocals mixed with a bombastic, fun, uplifting synth chorus. It's a win-win formula for Aurora, and it's one that she's definitely done before, but yet this song still feels like it's fresh and offering something new, along with its amazing music video, which just really dives into the actual subject matter I love so literally because of the like tears that turn into flowers. Creates its own beautiful visual that she plays with, and I love that. Definitely some Billie Eilish inspiration there, even though Billie Eilish is mostly inspired by Aurora. The two are definitely looking at each other now. The song Animal, which was the second song, again, I think I like The River a little bit more than Animal, but Animal is a song we've been with for a little while. It came out several months ago, and again, it just lures you in with immediacy. There's something very satisfying about those songs. Maybe they feel a little bit simplistic compared to, again, like some of the opuses that she has created, which are more experimental. But there's just something so ear-catching about them that you just can't help but just feel kind of uplifted. But at the same time, Animal has quite dark lyrics. The lyrics are quite ominous in that she's talking about, what love can do to us and the human condition, which we are, as humans, darker beings sometimes. And it's a mess out there. It's every man for himself out there, for sure. And the lyrics play and hint at that. The first new track we get is called Dance on the Moon. When I saw this title, I was like, this is the most Aurora title ever, and I love it. As we open up, already it's lilting, beautiful, soft vocals over shimmering keyboard. The voice is calling for a touch to be undone. I hope love will come to us again, as a place we all can come. And if I'm blinded, will my eyes become the planets? Will I float or will I drown? This voice, is it calling for the world to pull me down? In the chorus, she sings, I feel time looking out my window, watching me dance on the moon. Yearning for that place, that home that we wish we could be in when we're feeling down and we're feeling weighed down by the heaviness of the earth, and we just want to dance on the moon. Not literally the moon, but just that the representation of it, and I cannot relate more to these lyrics. However, as we move forward into the chorus, it feels as though the song is just trying to build. Like when I heard the chorus, I thought it was the pre-chorus. And I was like, when is it really going to kick off? And then we get the post-chorus where she's doing some ad-libs, which are very cute. I love when Aurora just sort of lets herself go, feels herself in her vocal, isn't trying to necessarily craft a lyric. There's something earthy about it, sort of ritualistic, and Aurora has had that in all of her music. This isn't my least favorite song on the album by far, but it's definitely a song that I would need a little bit more time to listen to get accustomed to. It didn't stick in my head after first listen. I was like, what did I just listen to? It just didn't really stick. And again, I am a sucker for melody. So if the melody is not that instantly memorable, it's going to be hard for me to want to come back to the track. I remembered the verses and how beautiful they felt, literally like someone floating in the night sky. But then I just felt like it kind of flatlined a little bit, and everything mushed together in the synths and in the vocals to be very monotone. And Aurora is this artist who I consider so lilting. And, you know, I've had some of this complaint on some of her production, some of the production on some of her songs. Even on Infections, I argued that one things I didn't like was that Soft Universe felt very like compressed in terms of its production. It felt like the magic had been sucked out of it just a little bit in terms of the way it had been produced and mixed. And maybe that's an issue that's again happening with this song. I would love to hear it live and hear sort of the differences in instrumentation and inflections that sort of allow this song to sort of wrap itself around you more. But it doesn't feel quite as inviting to me, and it's definitely not as memorable or something I would really sing along to. And that hurts its impact for me, unfortunately. But like I said, I really wish that I hadn't been quite so keen on finding that as I press play on all of these new songs. The next song, Daydreamer, has this problem even more for me, though. Daydreamer feels like Dance on the Moon, but even more watered down in terms of its sonics. And I will say this, Aurora has a beautiful, beautiful voice. And I definitely don't, I don't like to say that artists have a voice that's better suited for this or that, because some artists, it's true, are a little better with a certain range, a certain singing style. Aurora is really good when she's a little bit more soft and it's just really close to the microphone and she's kind of carrying a more airy melody. But when she really tries to reach for that chest voice and push out and really let out what is like a loud, bombastic vocal, it comes off a little less refined, but that's fine. A lot of my favorite artists do that. The problem is that there's no payoff in terms of the actual construction of the song itself. She comes across a little bit shouty in this song as she sings, and we become nighttime dreamers and streetwalkers, small talkers, when we should be daydreamers and moonwalkers and dream talkers. Lots of talkers and walkers, it's a little bit heavy-handed for me. I don't know, maybe that forced rhyme and the fact that I said it feels as though the song just sort of crashes a little bit, and it's so much like shouting this message. And as much as I'm here for the message of the song, the theme of it, I interpret to be, especially in the verses, we need to be more exciting and be more imaginative. This world is a reflection of how we are as our humans, as ourselves. And if we're not striving to change anything about it, if we're not really daring to dream, then the world isn't going to actually change around us. And all our dreams are just refined to our subconscious when we're sleeping. We're the nighttime dreamers and the small talkers. We need to dare to dream bigger and talk more, openly about our dreams and our wildest hopes and fears and loves. And I think that, this kind of boldness into dreaming is so important because it carries that sort of coming back to childhood, that innocence where children are not afraid to tell you about this crazy fantasy that they just had and write all about it and like believe it into existence for themselves. Whereas with humans, we're so like kind of narrowed in our focus on this 3D reality and what's real and what's not real, and having such strict rules about everything about that. When we really should be a little bit more open to, being that daydreamer again. And so I could not be more on board with all of the subject matter on every single song of this record. But it's just the way it's brought across. It doesn't, it hurts it for me so much because it loses any sort of ethereal charm, and it becomes a little bit like more like a sort of a repetitive mantra. And there's nothing wrong with that, but it's not really a song. It's not really a song. And it's also very pop. And that also makes it kind of generic. And I mean, Aurora, when she does go pop, has always flirted with somewhat generic production. So it's not really helping her in this case. There are other songs where it's very experimental. And so even though the song doesn't exactly feel like it has its footing together right, it is at least experimental and different and unique. And I appreciate that. But Dance on the Moon, and particularly Daydreamer, which I hate to say, but Daydreamer is my least favorite song on this record, just feel as though they are dragging, in terms of any kind of sonic composition. And it really pains me to say this because none of her other songs really do. I mean, if I had to compare it, it reminds me a little bit of Soft Universe in that the song, like I said, maybe it's partly the mixing, but I think that with Daydreamer, it's not so much the mixing, it's just the composition itself. It actually feels very unimaginative. The chorus, like like if I were writing down a song about this concept, I would want this more kind of soaring, ethereal, acrobatic melody that has these beautiful key changes and these beautiful note turns, and instead we get something that just comes across kind of shouty and repetitive. Um, and it doesn't exactly suit Aurora's voice either. Like I said, it's not like I never want to listen to it ever again. It has its own charm, definitely bears repeated listens to get used to. But if I had to pick a song that I would skip off of this record, it would be this one. And it's just a shame that I feel that way. The next track, Hunger, has a bit of a different issue for me. Hunger is really unique. When I first heard this song, I must admit, my eyes were like, whoa, this is not anything I ever thought I would hear Aurora ever make. It's a mid-tempo, almost urban sounding song. It's a very electronic, it's almost her most EDM song, you could argue, in terms of the fact that her vocals are layered in a very kind of traditional EDM style. And I mean, again, I don't have too much problem with her flirting with EDM. It also has a bit of a Caribbean sound. It has a little bit of a, dare I say, urban backing to it, which makes it very unusual for her to be, over a certain beat like this. I don't know how else to describe it. Her vocals as she delivers the chorus are very upfront and uniquely so. I don't think we've heard her deliver vocals in such a playful way. I've been born for some time. I heard it as I've been bored for some time, because that makes more sense in my mind. And I got death on my mind. Come and follow me away from the nightlife. Sleeping in nirvana. I was like, whoa, that's an interesting lyric there. And I will long for the gutter. That phrase, I was like, sleeping in nirvana and I will long for the gutter. Doesn't even really rhyme, even though she has a little bit of she has a very strong British accent, even though she's Norwegian. So she says Nirvana, Gata. Like she sort of rhymes them, even though they don't rhyme. But they're very pronounced, and the emphasis is so strong on those words. But they come across a little heavy-handed, and like it's like a little oddly specific. I'm like, okay, interesting lyrical choices. When I'm in your arms, I long for my freedom. In many ways, we're not the same, but in some ways, we are. Looking for something new in the skin of an avatar. I love that lyric. I love that lyric. It's sort of like the Build-A-Bear workshop idea of like build a boyfriend, build a girlfriend. We're looking for almost more of the avatar of our idealized partner instead of the actual person themselves. We get very caught up in this, and I do for sure, in kind of, I had to admit to myself at one point, I was like, Arthur, I think you're in love with the idea of a boyfriend, the idea of the perfect boyfriend, more than any possible actual human that exists out there could possibly live up to. So you have to really kind of reel it back a little bit, the idealism, and the fantasy of it, because fantasy is fun and all, but it's not reality. The reality is that a real person is more than just an avatar. I mean, we all are avatars, right? But like they're a person with their own unique thing that you can't possibly predict or control. And there is an element of wanting to control what you think the future will hold for you. Um, all we ever had is hunger. All we ever get is power. Would you ever feed each other? All we ever had is hunger. And of course, more ad libs. I think the song thematically, it's pretty straightforward. To quote AJ, she says that a lot. We all are longing for a missing piece to connect We're all longing for our other half. It's just an innate thing. But we also have this connection with it, with power, with wanting to control. Like I said, thinking we know. And it doesn't just mean relationships, it means everything. We think we know how the future is going to unfold, and we try so hard to control it. But at the end of the day, there are little things we can do. But at the end of the day, the more you try and control the future, the more it's just going to rebel against you and surprise and upset you. I tend to learn. So you really have to surrender that. You really have to reel that power back and understand that things are just going to happen the way they're going to happen. You know, you can't control every aspect of everything that happens in your hologram, you know? Your body is a garden, cared for or forgotten. Kill me with medicine, heal me with poison. Again, these beautiful metaphors for what romance can be. It can be this beautiful possibility, or it could be this deadly, thorn in your side. But yet we still constantly long for the next thing. So I relate so much to the lyricism. Very interestingly produced. Again, I mean, I don't hate it. I think it took a little bit of time to get used to, but I actually think it has its own sort of unique flair. The mix, which just makes it feel, like I said, more exotic, definitely makes it feel less like this Nordic girl up in the forests of Norway, and it more feels like she's sort of exploring the jungles of Borneo or something. It's very worldly, and again, I like that she's kind of exploring the world in that way thematically through her music. Soulless creatures. Now, when I saw that title, I was like, okay, this could be that song. This could be the next It Happened Quiet. Just the title. I mean, everything about it. It's so Aurora. It's so hopelessly fairy tale. I was just like, this is going to paint a picture, because It Happened Quiet paints a pretty dark but beautiful picture. And Soulless Creatures does the same lyrically. Again, lyrics almost I have very little to bad to say. Never knew this curious head of mine, never knew what is love if kept inside. Nothing but an endless empty heart, like laying a seed within the dark. I wouldn't mind if I can't find anything to save our kind. All the pieces of my body's gone. Look at me now, don't tell me how I feel inside. Every piece that I've lost, I have loved. Come, my wonders, after dawn restores, waiting for the world to turn once more, listening to the deep magnetic sound, hunting for a victim, lying down. Come back to me after peace restores, soulless creatures. Ominous, sparse, brooding, the song opens up, ready to take you there. And then it shifts in the chorus to a lighter, more chiming, airy sound that doesn't quite mix well with me for the verses. There's this disconnect in terms of light and dark that is just not really making sense to me. This was one of those songs that after I listened to it, I was just like, what? Like, what just happened? And again, it was another part where I kept waiting for the real chorus and it never really came. I was like, is that the chorus? I'm happy we're back at the verses because I love the verses, but it just isn't, something is not really gelling. It feels like two completely different songs sonically were meshed together. You know, like one of those woven things where it's like in and out, and it just, sometimes, it's kind of nice to make a tapestry of sound, but I was like, this is not mixing well for me. All I will say is this: there is a gravity to this song that is undeniable, that unlike Daydreamer, which definitely felt like very pop and kind of generic, this song is not. This is an Aurora song. This is introspective, this is unique, this is dark, this is mysterious, and I will appreciate that through and through without falter. But I can't help but lament the fact that she's done this but way stronger melodically on other songs, like It Happened Quiet, for example, or the song Home off of her debut record, or Murder Song. The songs that are really dark and are sort of speaking about this bleakness in such a melancholic and gothic and yet airy, beautiful, ethereal way. The way she knows how to turn a melody, make it this storybook. It's almost very Disney. Like, it's very Disney. I heard someone say It Happened Quiet has like a Disney quality to it. It's like over the top. And this song feels very watered down. It feels like it's not trying to go for that anymore. And it makes me wonder, just like, I don't know, like, melodically, the inspirations just aren't quite there. You know, and I always thought that Aurora was an artist who was driven a lot by melody. You know, I often compare like artists like Enya, for example. Enya always talks about how melody is really the core of a song and the reason why she continues to make music. Lyrics are important, but they're just sort of like something you put over a melody, not the other way around. Whereas I feel like this time around, in particular for Aurora, there was not really any sort of real thought put into the melodies. They were kind of concocted last minute to sort of just be there for the sake of being there. But they don't almost really feel like they need to be. These songs, I don't know if they would work very well as poems because they are so refrainy, but there's like structures of poems that almost would sound better without the music element. And that's, or like if they were just more ambient and more spaced out. Instead of trying to have these choruses, because I think the choruses are what are really dragging down this album, unfortunately for me. Some people are really going to disagree with me, by the way, on this. It's just everyone's ear is unique and different, but the melody is one of the most important things, along with the production and the, you know, the layerings and all of the sounds that are incorporated, all the instrumentation. And for me, you know, none of even the instrumentation is sticking out. You know, when it happened quiet, she had the harp. For Soulless Creatures, we get this like we get these sort of like this dragging sound in the background. I'm not really sure how to describe it, but it just doesn't really jive well with the sort of floating feeling you get from these sort of closer, witchier moments that she has with the microphone. I'm like, what's this? It's like someone dragging like a metal box across the floor. And it really grates. I'm really unsure of all the sonics that are going on. I'm really not on board with some of the instrumental choices. Okay, so In Bottles was one of the songs we had heard live performed before. It feels like a song that she wrote a lot longer ago, and I honestly feel like it was meant for Infections, but for some reason didn't get put on that record, because In Bottles corrects all of these issues that I've been having with this album so far, besides the singles. In Bottles delivers a melody. It delivers a package. Everything that she chooses in terms of the production, it's avant-garde and not exactly what you would expect, but it works. The song just, oh, it's so rewarding after listening to several songs that just dragged for me a little bit and didn't quite deliver the Aurora factor for me, besides the lyrics being quite insightful and interesting and playful, which is something she's known for. I love the idea of this song, you know, keeping your tears in bottles, metaphorically or literally, but it's more of a metaphor. In case you need them later, you never know, you never know. And the way the song sort of dives in, and it has the similar feel to another song I love called All Is Soft Inside off of the last record. Sonically, it's got a sort of similar progression, a similar percussion, a similar rhythm, a really ear-catching melody. Everything about this is just, it's just hitting me on the right, it's hitting all the right points for me. Or bravo, Aurora. I'm so glad this song came because it just helped correct what was somewhat of a murkier, you know, aimless kind of track that this record was going on. And of course, the lyricism, just on board with the whole thing. Then we have a different kind of human. So really the album kind of picks up towards the end. I really do think that the midsection is where the album kind of falters the most. A different kind of human is a gorgeous sparse moment where we're really up close to the microphone. We've just got these nice ambient layering sounds. Hello, are you home? Am I home? Is this the mothership? Are you awake or are you sleeping? It reminds me of How Deeply Are You Sleeping or Are You Still Awake? Sky Full of Song, Florence. I love that opener. Are you afraid? We've been waiting for this meeting. As she sings this, this is literally like, okay, this is what I'm here for Aurora to give me, like this recuperation period, this like reprieve from the heaviness of life. This is why I love Aurora so much. She's such an escape. Oh, Superman, are you with me when I am too weak? Oh, mother, are you dreaming of me in your sleep? Like, this is just that beautiful storybook lyricism that she carries in such a beautiful Celtic melody. It sounds very Celtic to me because of the lilt of her voice. very mythological. It sends shivers, and it's the equivalent of like getting into a beautiful warm bath, with like a beautiful scent, the aromatherapy of it all. You can smell, you can feel, you can taste, you can touch the love. And that's what this song is, because it really is. It's a nice, gentle, warm hug that Aurora is giving us. And we all could use that hug. Like, who wouldn't want a hug from Aurora, right? And then it ends with this beautiful, so transcendental vocalization that really feels like an elevating, uplifting chant. It feels incantational. It feels like invoking the spiritual elements of her music that I love so much. And it would be a great segue into Mothership, but that's not the next song on the record. So this is where the track listing really gets it wrong for me, because I would have placed this song as the second to last song on the record. Because the next song we get is Apple Tree, and we couldn't be any more diverse in terms of energy. Oh my gosh. Now, I will say this. Besides being like super abrupt, coming from a different kind of human to Apple Tree, on its own, Apple Tree is an interesting song. It's very unique and it's very different. And it's similar to Hunger in that, like I said, it's a little bit urban sounding. Apple Tree is unlike anything Aurora has ever done. It's a whirlwind of a song, quite quick. It feels like it never really gets started and it is over. Some songs do that because it is a little short. But she's almost rapping the lyrics to us. Like, it's very up tempo. It's like completely unique to the style we're used to her, which is anthemic and ethereal and sort of hovering. This is like very much tied to the rhythm. Like, she is trying to get down to it, and I'm like, okay, girl, you do you. Like, you experiment with this, because honestly, it pays off. And actually, as it builds to the chorus, I actually do feel it. Like, this song actually feels like, again, like her really trying to be pop and it paying off. I don't really have much an issue with the song, although it is very unique. And I mean, there are some questionable choices with the instrumentation. Not really sure what's going on or what was chosen for what reason. It's very synth heavy, so it doesn't feel very organic in any way, even though the song is called Apple Tree. So I was expecting something that's very earthy and very kind of natural. It feels very processed. So that's a little bit of a disconnect for me. It does feel a little bit like a call to gathering, like an urgency. I feel like Aurora is sort of like, as she says, like the mother to the lost people. And then she's like, come quickly under the tree. Come under the tree. I'm going to gather you all. All my life I've been hunting. I've been a girl, I've been a boy, digging my feet into the ground like an apple tree. Wanting to live with a purpose. Skin is a word, love is not a sin. People are bad, people are good, just like the moon is a stone, but it's a star when it's dark, and now she's hiding. Very interesting lyricism here. I love that. If you've seen what a heart is, you've seen its color. If I ever knew how we could guide it, I would take care of its children, become their mother. If I never knew how we could hide it. Let her save the world, she is just a girl. Let him save them all, he is just a boy. This part in the real chorus does feel a little bit fragmented for me and a bit robotic. And like I said, it just feels disconnected from the earthier kind of tone it's trying to, the earthier setting it's trying to evoke, which is sort of like this earth goddess who is like trying to, trying to elude herself to an apple tree, to the moon, to this all-knowing, powerful being, nature spirit, who is here to solve the mysteries of love and heartache. And it's a weird and odd, it's interesting. I'm looking at the producers here, and I just said Odd. One of the co-producers' name is Odd Martin. His first name is literally Odd. So, yeah, interesting. Very interesting. But yes, the sound effects and everything, like, interesting choices. Avant-garde for sure. Don't know what else to say. We have the seed. Again, I don't really get the placement of this song. I would have placed it a little earlier on the record, although I get kind of why it's towards the end. I would have probably put the seed right before A Different Kind of Human. Like I said, I would have just shifted the order a bit. I've already given my thoughts. The seed is the opus of our time. I mean, this song is delivering in every way I want it to. Powerful anthemic rolling chorus that comes in like a tsunami, like an earthquake. It grabs your attention. It's got ritualistic kind of Norse backings to it where she sort of just lets go. And when she does allow her more chest voice to pop out and her voice to project, it comes across raw and unbridled. And I love that, where it's mixed well with the sort of swelling production. And yet it's got that beautiful bridge that's very meditative, that's like trying to evoke this mysticism. And she's speaking about, these dreams. It's very dreamlike. It's a beautiful crafted song that has all the flavors that I'm looking for in a Aurora track, with an amazing message that, like I said, is just so important. Like the thesis statement, right, of the era. Probably the best song on this record. Probably my favorite. I mean, it automatically stood out. We end the record with Mothership. This is more of an ambient outro. It's very short. It's echoing back to a different kind of human, which is, like I said, why the songs really should be together. I feel like they just sig into each other nicely. It's very sparse. There's not much else to say. It is very spiritual. I wish it was longer because I really liked being in that moment with her. But at the same time, it doesn't feel quite as special to me because the album doesn't quite feel as magical. If this song came at the end of Infections of a Different Kind, it would hold even more weight to me, which is why I highly recommend that you listen to both of these bodies of works together. And like I said, I'll create a list of all the songs in the order I think they're the best to be listened to. And when you listen to them in this order, you really feel the story, and coming to Mothership feels a little bit more impactful. But like I said, it's an amazing outro. I have nothing bad to say about it. But because it's so kind of just that, it's hard for me to critique it in a way because it's not really a song. It's just a moment, And it makes me curious as to where we're going from here. Is this a launch pad to another world, that she wants to explore with step 3? It almost feels like this would be a good song to end the entire step project on. But when artists end albums with these sort of very transcendental, cathartic songs, it almost feels like this is the end. There's no going on beyond this because it almost feels like death itself, and that transition, like a rapture. So it is an interesting note to end on. But I must say, it almost feels a little too holy for everything else that we got on this record. Like I said, a few songs rise to the occasion, but for me, this album doesn't quite take me to church the same way Infections did. And more importantly, this album just does not have the same kind of magic in terms of the musicality of it that the earlier record did, and the connection between the lyrics and the musicality. There's just this disconnect. It does feel a little bit more commercial. Like I said, this album feels a little bit more like the project that her label wanted her to make, because it's more upbeat and it's a little bit less, I don't know. I mean, I don't want to say it's less moody, because it is moody. It's dark, and there's nothing wrong with dark pop doing well. I mean, look at Billie Eilish. The problem for me is that Infections of a Different Kind, the songs were longer, they were more kind of cinematic, they were just their own thing, and they felt a lot more sort of like the music that her soul needed to make. And this album feels like interesting ideas put to music, but it feels like the whole thing was not as considered, and the whole package, and it does feel like not maybe quite as much time was spent on crafting the right melody, on hitting the right tones, getting the balance right between the production and the instrumentals, and using the right instruments, and just crafting a song that like really stands well on its own 2 feet. It's definitely an album that might grow on me over time a little bit. Like I said, Hunger and Apple Tree are 2 songs that on first listen I was very kind of perplexed by, but on repeated listens have sort of digested. Daydreamer and Dance on the Moon, however, and to some extent Soulless Creatures, I'm having trouble with because I've listened to them many times, and they're still I'm not really getting a breakthrough with them. I'm hoping Soulless Creatures gets there. I think the one song that I must admit is really not taking it for me is Daydreamer. It's my least favorite song. My other favorites, I mean, again, I love The River, I love The Seed, A Different Kind of Human, In Bottles, and Mothership. Those are definitely the top songs for me. Let me know in the comments what you think. Do you agree? Do you disagree? I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people who might prefer this record to Infections. And then there will be people who think the other way around. But for me, Infections of a Different Kind is that record. And to some extent, you know, her early record as well. There's just something missing for me on this new one, but it's different, you know, and I have to accept and celebrate the uniqueness of it. And the songs will still find their way into my playlist. They'll still find their way into my heart because, like I said, all of Aurora's children I want to take care of and I want to nurture because they are all unique, special little things that are doing their own thing. And like I said, I don't want her to necessarily repeat herself, but I kind of do want it happen quiet 2.0. You know, I kind of just I can't help it. When I hear something that is so gorgeous, when I hear Infection's a Different Kind, the title track, I can't help but just want a continuation of that. It's only natural. I'm a sucker for beautiful melodies that just are tinged with heartache and sorrow and beautiful instrumentals. And of course, amazing lyrics. And the lyrics are again a front that I think Aurora, though there are some odd choices that she makes with some of the words she chooses, and the focus is so much on them, Aurora still always crafts amazing, interesting lyrics that tell a story, not in like a way we've heard a lot of other people tell it. There's no one out here like Aurora, that's for sure, and we need more artists like her, and I'm glad she's still making music. I'm really excited for step 3, if there is a step 3, or whatever her next project is. To all the warriors and weirdos, we are still going to cherish this new record and be the beautiful, different kinds of humans that we are. I hope you all enjoyed this record. Please give it a like and subscribe if you did. My review of Infections will be in the description, along with my review of The Seed, River, and Animal. And have a wonderful, blessed day. Peace, love, and light. Bye.